C.J. Stroud's rookie year in the NFL put the rest of the league on notice by setting records and getting his team back into the postseason for the first time since 2019. Welcome back, or welcome to America's Sports, the place where we cover American sports and the ones that play in them. This is the first quarterback that we are covering in this series. In this episode, we are covering C.J. Stroud. Stroud is entering his second year in the NFL, and he's a beast. We focus on how they became the beast that they are known to be today. So, without further ado, let's get into it. C.J. Stroud was born on October 3rd, 2001, which gives me the sense that I'm getting fucking old. And obviously everyone calls him CJ, but his full name is Coleridge Bernard Stroud IV. He is the youngest of 4 total siblings. He has 2 older brothers and 1 older sister. He was born in Rancho Cucamonga, California, where he also played high school football. I've only heard of Rancho Cucamonga in the movie Next Friday, to be honest with you, and when I was younger, I thought that they had just made that place up. His mother is Kimberly Stroud, and his father is Coleridge Bernard Stroud III. And unfortunately, when CJ was in middle school, his father received a 38 years to life prison sentence, where this put his family into financial debt. So from a young age, he and his family would go through some hardship. There would be some adversity to go through. But ever since that young age, he always either wanted to play in the NFL or play in the NBA. When he was a freshman in high school, he told his math teacher this. His math teacher then wrote down the number 0.078 on a dry erase board to show the probability of being able to play professional sports. When I was in school, our math teacher, and I'm sure y'all's math teacher, said the same thing. And 99.9% of the time, your math teacher is going to be correct. Stroud would obviously, as we know, overcome these crazy odds, not only make it into professional sports, but he is thriving in his 1 year as a pro. But he had to go through a lot, and he wasn't always seen as a beast by recruits. When he first started playing football in high school, he was only listed as a 3-star recruit. Which, don't get me wrong, being a 3-star recruit is fantastic. But in terms of making it to professional, not a lot of 3-star recruits make it to the NFL, let alone thrive in the NFL. But by the time he was a senior in high school, he would turn everything around as he would throw for 47 touchdowns and almost 4,000 passing yards. So he made sure to change those damn ratings. He ended up becoming the 3rd highest rated quarterback of his class, and he was uncommitted there for a little bit. And when you're that highly rated of a quarterback, you're going to get a bunch of offers. He had more than a dozen, reportedly, and that comes from Oregon, Georgia, USC, Michigan, Ohio State, of course. I'm sure there were a lot of California teams, and I'm sure the whole Big Ten wanted him. But he chose to go to Ohio State, and it seemed like it worked out. Stroud's first year with the team, he would take a red shirt as a freshman. So he would ultimately get to play 2 seasons as Ohio State's starting quarterback. Ohio State had a couple other quarterbacks they were thinking about going with, but ultimately went with Stroud, and that was a good move. And guys, from here on out, this is where it gets silly. In just his first year as a starter, he was getting honors and was breaking records. He was the Big Ten quarterback of the year and was first team All Big Ten. And about every other week, he threw for 5 touchdowns. But at the same time, listen to this wide receiver room. CJ was thrown to Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, Jackson Smith-Njigba, and Marvin Harrison Jr. was the 4th wide receiver on the team since he was the freshman. He led the team to a 10-2 record, 44 touchdowns to just 6 picks, and was incredibly accurate, just about 72% completion percentage. They just barely did not make the college playoffs, and Stroud finished 4th in the Heisman voting. But to me, he always played his best in the biggest of games. In the Rose Bowl, he led a comeback to beat Utah. He also set a Rose Bowl record for 573 passing yards. Following that season, he very well could have went to the NFL right after it. He elected not to. He elected to stay for another year. And he followed it up with another fantastic season. His numbers were relatively the same, a little bit worse, but still an absolute monster season. I'm sure his only regret is losing to Michigan twice as the starting quarterback. They got beat 45-23 by Michigan, but they were still able to make it the final spot for the college playoffs. In the playoffs, they'd be facing off with Georgia in the first round. Stats-wise, numbers-wise, that's probably not the best game of his college career, but to me, it was because of the level of competition. That team went on to win the national championship. Even though they did not win, I believe that was Stroud's best individual game. He passed Justin Fields for most career passing touchdowns in Ohio State's history, and this year he finished third in the Heisman voting, one better than the season before. And that is something that helped solidify for me that he should have been the number one pick. I was saying it for a while that Stroud was supposed to be the number one pick. You can look in the NFL mock draft video that I put up here if you don't believe me, but yes, Stroud would declare for the NFL. He had a strong NFL combine workout, and it was pretty much between him and another California quarterback, Bryce Young, who he knows. Most people were for Bryce Young to be number one, but there were some for CJ Stroud. And that's how it would happen. Bryce Young would go number one overall, and Stroud would go number two overall to the Houston Texans. Now, as far as the Houston Texans were concerned, they weren't projected to be that good of a team on most people's predictions or accounts. They would start the season off 0-2 as well, one loss being in the division against the Colts. And really, both of those games weren't that close. So you start to think, well, maybe this team is too young to make noise this year. But CJ can have a fine season and can build upon it. Well, that's not what happened. They would then go on to win 3 of their next 4 games, putting them at 500. Once they beat Cincinnati in an absolute great game, in Week 10 they would no longer be 500 or worse. I believe this game gave them a ton of momentum to push for the playoffs. A week before that, Stroud was coming off of his best game, and probably his best game of the NFL career thus far for CJ. They beat Arizona the next week after beating Cincinnati, and this would be their best win streak of the season at 3. At the same time, after starting 0-2, they would never lose 2 games in a row again the rest of the year. They won 3 out of their last 4 games to get them into the playoffs, and also with a division title. That division title, I think, is a pretty big thing because Jacksonville was heavily favored. They were almost favored more than the Kansas City Chiefs were for their division in the AFC West. So for CJ and this team being able to overcome those odds and win the division this early only speaks to great things for what Houston is capable of doing in the near future. Stroud would also get a playoff win in his rookie year. That's huge. A lot of rookies don't get to experience that. I don't know why, but that Cleveland team was favored. I had Houston all day, mainly because Cleveland's defense is the first really good defense that I've seen that does not travel. On the road, they were one of the worst teams, but at home, they were amazing. This game would be on the road, though, and Houston would put it to them. They would get beat by Baltimore the next week, but what an amazing season for Stroud and the fellas for their first year really together. And the future is now for CJ Stroud and the Houston Texans. And I can't wait to see what CJ can do on the field in year 2 and on. They were able to bring in some key offensive pieces, and they all want to play for Houston for CJ Stroud for this upcoming season, and now they are the favorites, and rightfully so. Stephon Diggs and Joe Mixon becoming the 2 biggest pieces for them on offense to head down to Houston. We will be covering CJ and plenty more stars as the future rolls on for us. And of course, we cover the rest of the NFL as well. There's so much more in store for us that CJ is going to put on display. And I'm here for all of it. This has been CJ Stroud. He's a beast, and I'm Ty from America Sports. Thanks for watching. You'll see me in the next one.